Welcome to Eat Your Greens with Dr. Black. I'm Dr. Black, and I created this podcast because I'm passionate about helping people, just like you, take charge of their health through simple, evidence-based nutrition and lifestyle changes. I know life gets busy, and it's not always easy to prioritize your health, but I'm here to show you that it is possible, and it doesn't have to be complicated. This episode is going live on May 5th. That's Cinco de Mayo, right? So I thought it would be fun to do an episode exploring the origins of this holiday and also to talk about Mexican food, one of my favorites. Yum! Let me just give you a little bit of background information about me and why I'm so excited about Cinco de Mayo and just Mexican culture in general. Cinco de Mayo happens to fall exactly 3 days after my birthday, so that's fun. And I went to medical school in San Antonio. Now, San Antonio is one of my all-time favorite cities in the world. It's a beautiful city. It's situated right on the edge of the Texas Hill Country, and the people there are wonderful. They're so friendly. The culture, the colors of the city, the food. It's just an amazing place. If you've never been, I highly recommend it. If you're familiar at all with San Antonio, maybe you've heard of Fiesta. Remember the Alamo? A fiesta is a week and a half of cultural events, parades, and parties, things like Night in Old San Antonio and Oyster Bake, that not only honors the heroes who died in the Battle of the Alamo and the Battle of San Jacinto, but also celebrates the rich and diverse heritage and culture of San Antonio. If you ever get a chance to go to Fiesta, don't miss the Battle of the Flowers Parade. It's the only parade in the United States produced entirely by women, and it features gorgeous floats decorated with all kinds of flowers. The queen of the parade and her court who ride on the floats wear these stunning, elaborate gowns. And if you go, don't be surprised to hear everyone yelling, "Show us your shoes." If you know, you know. So what does Fiesta have to do with Cinco de Mayo? They're not directly related, but they are similar, and today you're going to learn how. I'm going to talk about the history of Cinco de Mayo, which may not be what you think it is, and how it's celebrated today. I'm going to explore Mexican food, past and present, and I'm going to share a link for a recipe to the ultimate Mexican comfort food. ¿Listo? Aprendamos todo sobre el Cinco de Mayo. So let me start by clarifying a common misconception among many people who aren't from Mexico. Cinco de Mayo is not Mexican Independence Day. That's September 16th, or Día 16, as it's called. Día 16 has its own set of celebrations and events. Today, we are tipping our sombreros to the brave people of Puebla, Mexico, who, back on May 5th, 1862, despite being greatly outnumbered, defeated the invading French army and unwittingly gave us an opportunity to enjoy amazing food. As if I need another excuse to eat tacos. I mean, we've already got Taco Tuesday, and here where I live, every day is Taco Day because we love our breakfast tacos. If you live in a part of the world that does not know about breakfast tacos, all I can say is, I'm sorry for you, friend. All right, so back to Cinco de Mayo and the brave people of Puebla, Mexico. And so when it comes to Mexico, Cinco de Mayo is not a national holiday. It's mostly just observed in Puebla, where, much like Fiesta, they have parades, reenactments, and celebrations with lots of dancing, folk dancing, and local food. So fast forward 100 years from the 1860s to the United States Civil Rights Movement of the 1960s, and we have the Chicano Pride movement, which embraced Cinco de Mayo as a celebration of Mexican heritage and resistance. At some point, the beer companies caught wind of the party potential, and, well, here we are. Today, Cinco de Mayo is more popular in the United States than in Mexico, especially in places like Texas, where I live, and California, and, to be honest, just about any spot with a solid Tex-Mex restaurant. And naturally, we've Americanized it into a fiesta of food and margaritas. So, while you're munching on your tacos and tipping back your skinny margarita on the rocks, I invite you to take a minute to appreciate our neighbors to the south. After living in Central Texas for several decades, I can say that I love my adorable Mexican-American patients, and I have a great appreciation for the rich culture, delicious food, and beautiful people of Mexico. Y yo quiero decir muchas gracias a las familias en mi clínica y en mi comunidad. Te amo. Now that you have a better idea of what you're celebrating today, let's talk about Mexican food. Just like the Cinco de Mayo holiday, the meals that many Americans order, whether it's at a fast food place or at a sit-down restaurant, have been westernized. So let me just say, if you follow the paleo diet, just know that the creators of that diet kind of made it up to fit their agenda, and it bears little resemblance to what ancient humans actually ate, which was mostly native plants, including tubers, grains, and beans, with smaller quantities of hunted meat. And ancient Mesoamericans were no different. The ancient Aztec diet predominantly consisted of corn, beans, squash, chilies, avocado, and, let's not forget, cacao, for which I am eternally grateful. The modern Tex-Mex or Americanized Mexican diet is greatly influenced by American fast food and our Western culture of convenience. It's much more processed and is much heavier on things like meat and cheese and other dairy like sour cream, which also makes it loaded with saturated fat, which we know is directly linked to things like diabetes and heart disease, Alzheimer's, all the cardiometabolic diseases that I talk about often on this podcast. If you go to any Tex-Mex restaurant, it's practically a tradition to eat so much of the chips and queso that they bring out to begin with that you can barely eat your meal. But of course you do anyways because it's so delicious. And then you leave the restaurant feeling so stuffed you can hardly move, and you go home and go into your food coma and wake up the next day and do it all again if you live where I live. So in comparison, an authentic Mexican diet was and is naturally more plant-forward, high in fiber and lower in fat. The inclusion of animal foods was more sporadic, and it varied, of course, based on the local environment. So naturally, people in coastal communities are going to eat more fish and seafood, and other common animal proteins included things like waterfowl, things like duck and geese, and some wild game. Interestingly, insects were a vital protein source before the introduction of domesticated animals by the Spanish conquistadors. Did you know that Mexico is estimated to have around 500 species of edible insects, making them actually a relatively abundant food source? Now, truthfully, this might be the one food that I'm glad hasn't made it onto the modern Tex-Mex menu. But really, much of the protein in the ancestral Mexican diet came from plants, especially beans, but also nuts, grains like amaranth, and seeds, things like chia, acorns, and squash seeds. Have you ever looked at the protein content of pumpkin seeds? And did you know that you can make a type of tofu out of them? Maybe that's a subject for a future episode, so stay tuned. But you can see how, like most ancestral diets around the world, this is a very healthy diet overall. So what can you do if, like me, you love Tex-Mex food, but you want to keep your diet healthier and more plant-centric? How can you enjoy those great Mexican flavors without sacrificing your health? Well, I'm about to tell you, I'm going to share some of my favorite easy tips for making great Mexican food at home. I do have to put in a little disclaimer here, though. I am not Mexican, and I'm also not a chef or a food blogger. As a doctor, I work long hours, and I don't usually have a lot of time to cook complicated dishes. So at home, when I make quote-unquote Mexican food, I tend to stick to things like tacos, enchiladas, and some easy one-pot meals with things like beans and veggies and rice that I can just throw together in a pinch. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. There are some really great, authentic Mexican food bloggers out there, and I'm going to share a recipe from one of my favorites, so keep listening. First off, let's just start with herbs and spices. These are what give food the unique flavor profile of any culture. It's what tells you that you're eating Indian food versus Italian or Jamaican food. It's all about the spice blend. Traditional Mexican cuisine emphasizes cumin, cinnamon, cloves, oregano, and of course, a variety of peppers like serranos, jalapenos, habaneros, and chile de arbol, just to name a few. Regardless of what the base of your recipe is, if you're using potatoes, rice, beans, tofu, or even meat, if you add the right spice blend, you're going to end up with a delicious meal. Another easy thing you can do at home to reduce the amount of processed food you're eating and include more of a whole grain would be just to swap out your flour tortillas for corn tortillas. If you really just want to use a flour tortilla, you can find some good whole wheat ones in most grocery stores. And of course, there's lots of recipes online to make your own. You can use your corn tortillas to bake your own tortilla chips instead of buying the fried and high salt store-bought variety. You can use your oven or your air fryer for this. And again, look online for recipes and techniques to get that nice crispy chip that you need to scoop your guacamole. If you're going to make something like a burrito or a fajita at home, be sure to load it with things like beans, lots of grilled veggies, mushrooms. You can use things like tofu or other plant-based alternatives as the protein. Lots of fun things you can do there. Next, drop the saturated fat in your meals by making a plant-based alternative to sour cream. I like to make a delicious cilantro lime cashew cream to top my tacos, or sometimes if I want more protein, I'll use tofu instead of the cashews. This gives me something that I can use for like a sour cream type enchilada, which is very easy to make. You can find dozens of recipes online for things like cashew crema or avocado aioli to use instead of the sour cream. Don't forget to add in one of the many variations of salsa. It's really easy to throw together some delicious vegetarian enchiladas with sautéed vegetables, a jar of salsa verde, and your favorite plant-based cheese. I also love homemade mango salsa for tacos, especially when it's hot outside in the summer. When making those tacos at home, use a plant-based meat alternative like tofu or texturized vegetable protein. Things like soy curls and seitan also work very well. Now, if you are using traditional ground meat, you can bulk up that taco meat by mixing in lentils. These mix into ground beef seamlessly, and they're not only going to increase your fiber intake, but they're going to drop your grocery bill because you can get away with buying less of that meat that is so expensive these days. One more fun and easy dinner that you can make, especially if you have a crowd, you're feeding guests, or you just have several people with different preferences, is to do something like a taco bar or a build-your-own Chipotle bowl. You can put out lots of different ingredients, and people get to customize their own bowl or taco, and it's a lot of fun. Last, I want to spotlight my favorite Mexican food blogger. Dora's Table is a wonderful vegan Mexican food blog that is stuffed with amazing recipes, things like pozole, enchiladas, chilaquiles. They're all delicious and authentic. The recipe link that I'm sharing in the show notes is for sopa de fideo. This is the ultimate Mexican comfort food. In fact, when my patients come in, when they're sick, this is the number one thing that they tell me that they eat when they're not feeling well. It's basically a noodle soup. It's made with toasted vermicelli noodles cooked into a rich tomato broth. It's easy. You can make it plant-based. It's kid-friendly. It's great for batch cooking. So I highly recommend it. Go to the show notes on the website, eatgreenswithdrblack.com, and click on the link to the recipe at the Dora's Table food blog. If you do make it, please reach out. Let me know what you thought. All right, let's recap. What did we learn? Now you know what you're celebrating today on Cinco de Mayo, so please don't forget to toast the brave people of Puebla, Mexico, with your favorite margarita, Mexican beer, or aguas frescas. You also now know more about the culture, the food, and flavor of ancient Mexico. I hope you're inspired to try out some of the tips that I shared to make your next Taco Tuesday not only delicious, but healthy as well. If you have a favorite Mexican or Tex-Mex recipe, let me know. You can send me an email. You can even click a link in the show notes to send me a text if you'd prefer. While you're at the website, don't forget to subscribe to the show so you get an email every time I release a new episode. And most importantly, if you found this episode valuable, if you had fun, if you learned anything, please share it with a friend. Otra vez, quiero decir las gracias a mis oyentes, a las maravillosa gente de Puebla y México, y a la gente en mi comunidad. Gracias por escuchar y no te olvides de comer tus verduras.